Okay, so this is going to be part two, picking up where I left off yesterday, with my final point being that the women surrounding Antifa, or just female nature in general, is emboldened to be aggressive towards men who they specifically know in advance will not met out a physical consequence for that aggression. Now, as you all know, occasionally some of them get surprised, and guy turns around and is basically educating them on why it's not a good idea to deliberately provoke some men. Not all men, some men, specific types of men, particularly out of the MGTOW community, which I gave some description to earlier. Now, am I a MGTOW? Yes, I'm a MGTOW. Now, I don't understand the tier system that MGTOW is apparently categorized in, and like I mentioned before, I have never met another MGTOW, at least not knowingly, and so my description on yesterday's video was a I wanted to express the far extreme end of MGTOW and how far it can go to exclusion of relationships with females from one's own family and from outside of the workforce. Believe it or not, I have actually ran into this question on an interview. Can you, in sort of hushed tones, can you work under a female supervisor? Now, at the time, naturally, before I began to think about any of this stuff, I saw that as, at first I was baffled by the question. And then I was kind of insulted by the question. I was like, well, of course I can work under a female supervisor. What an idiot kind of question is that, Until I had a few female supervisors, and then I began to understand a little more about why that question was asked. So, pardon me, I tend to do this when I'm trying to collect my thoughts. Unfortunately, as I promised in my disclaimer video, I did not do much preparation for this particular episode right here, but I promise in the future I am going to be better prepared. So, where is this going, this particular sense of entitlement and emboldening for women to be aggressive towards men? In my opinion, it comes from other men, okay? You'll know the category when I start using language such as simps, cucks, white knights, beta males, to describe the types of men who allow for female aggression against other males to be unchecked, and in fact, oftentimes to be encouraged, okay? Now, the motivation for these guys is the same motivation for pickup artists, or the PUA guy, right? The guy who's smooth with the ladies, he's always at the club, he's got a different girl on his arm every weekend. You know the type, the pickup artist. Now, I have some respect for these guys, because they really do have a deeper understanding of female nature than I do. That's one of the first things I had to admit to myself when I decided to make this video series, is that pickup artists, as much as I despise them, I have to respect them for that, because they know what motivates women. They know how to play that field. They know how women think on a more intuitive level than somebody like me, for example, does, okay? And this is evidenced by the fact that they do play the field so well. Now, for somebody that's trying to raise a family, for somebody that wants that, for a male that has that as a goal, I don't observe that it ever crosses the mind of that type of male that other men are going to be putting the females he interacts with in a position of advantage over him by allowing and encouraging aggression towards him. And so the newly married husband, you hear this all the time in society. As soon as you get married, what happens? The sex stops. Why? Because she's got a headache, she's got to wash her hair, every excuse under the book. And what comes right after that, right? Increased aggression on the part of the wife, okay? And often the husband will deny it, okay? They will live in denial of it. Now, a similar thing happens with cohabitation. Now, and this has happened with every single live-in girlfriend I have ever had. No exceptions to that rule. None. Zero. Every single girlfriend, and I've had a lot, that I've wound up either moving her into my place or we get a place together. I have never moved into her place, okay? I might have stayed over, I might have made a temporary adjustment here or there, but it was never my intention to move into her place, no. Well, without fail, it only takes a couple of weeks, and I'll notice they start getting more demanding. The demands increase in pitch and fever and in unreasonableness. Okay, at first it's reasonable, it's workable. You get home and instead of being able to kick off your shoes and crack a beer open and watch the tube, you got to take out the trash, wash the dishes, mow the lawn, etc., right? Well, in most men's observations, those demands never become satisfied. They always increase. The number of demands increase, and the unreasonableness of those demands increases, okay? To eventually to the point where it becomes conflict. And if the two individuals involved in that relationship don't know how to resolve conflict in a constructive manner, well, then it winds up in, domestic violence, it winds up in divorce, it winds up in all kinds of a mess. And government obviously feeds on this mess. I mean, there would be no such thing as gay marriage if government couldn't make money off of it. That's why gay marriage was passed. That's the whole idea, is to make money off of it. This is why government supports female aggression against productive men. Okay, not against beta male cucks. Okay, because they know that the beta male cucks are just going to take it, and they're going to, they're not going to see themselves as victims of female aggression because they only have one thing in mind. Can you take a guess at what that is? Well, let me use the analogy of your typical feminist or your typical welfare recipient. The reason they demand your money is because they don't have the skills to compete in the free marketplace, and they know it. They know that if left up to their own ends, if it was their responsibility for their own survival, they couldn't do it. They wouldn't be able to survive. So those are the kinds of men I'm talking about when I say beta, cuck, simps, white knights, etc. You get the picture. The pickup artist is not so much in that category. He's pretty self-sufficient. He's a survivor. He's just a different kind of an animal altogether. But the rest of them, the ones who can't survive in a free market society and that demand money be taken out of your wallet by the force of the government, think about it in the sexual marketplace. These men can't compete and survive in the sexual marketplace. So what do? They suck up to women and they encourage female aggression against other men who can survive in the sexual marketplace.